Lights, camera, action.
This is your sign to going all in your trading. Right, I am just fucking around having some fun. This is the scripted hook that I've seen 500 other traders use in order to reel people in before telling them about their rags to riches lifestyle story, and they only succeeded by risking it all. And you will not succeed unless you do the same thing. So I've been trading 11 years now. 2014 is when I first started. The majority of people who get into trading are looking for an escape. They're looking to get out of their 9 to 5 to create the lifestyle that they desire. I was in a different position, which I've always been completely open with. I had a business, it was successful, and what I found trading to do is to take the money that I make from that business and make more money with it. So to use my money to make money. The majority of people who are starting out in trading is a much younger demographic. They don't have the capital, they don't have the funding for themselves, and they're probably creating lives which they're not enjoying, and they're looking for a way to escape the matrix, for the lack of a better phrase. So I was already a business owner, I was already making good money. It doesn't sound sexy, it's not going to get the clicks. And what we're going to be talking about today is kind of some of the mental myths that you see bounded around, because the stories that you hear over and over again are all about this all or nothing mentality, which creates a really bad false expectation for those of you who are looking to become full-time traders, for those of you who are looking to take this seriously and actually have a logical path from step A, B, C, D, E, F to getting there to achieving it. So we're going to dispel some of these myths. I'm going to encourage you to look between the lines of a lot of these stories, because they're not going to be what they're made out to be. And then I'm going to talk about exactly what the phrase all in trading really means. It doesn't mean over risking, over leveraging, going for 3 million in funding all at one time, looking to max out your profits on your funded account every single week and every single month. And we want to dispel some of those myths and set you out with a right expectation of what that path from your current position you're stuck in is to how you can actually go ahead and put the probabilities on your side to achieving that full-time trader status and making this exactly what you know you want it to be. So when you hear that phrase, going all in, what does it make you think of? The majority of traders are going to be thinking, right, I've got to leave my job. I've got to completely turn around my life. I've got to be on the charts 24/7. I've got to take every single trading opportunity that potentially presents itself. I'm going to increase risk, increase leverage, and just overall, just every single trade has to be the one that changes my life, or I'm going to stay in the same place. You hear the stories from the mentors, people who've taken out credit cards to take funding challenges or to fund brokerages. You hear the stories of the guys who left their job with nothing but $1 and a dream and they made it work. There is no plan B. So the only outcome is that you watching this can succeed. I need to calm down and have a little bit too much fun with this one. So many of these stories that you hear from mentors, it's a very common way to market, to show lifestyle, and no one cares about the story that is not the rags to riches. If you're in a situation where you're working for minimum wage, you're doing a 9 to 5, you're doing food deliveries, you're doing Amazon deliveries, you don't want to hear about the guy who comes to trading who already had some money and just wanted to make more money with it. You want to hear from the guy who started with nothing and built up to achieve this thing. The story sounds great, right? Before I get into this, I do just want to state there are, without a doubt, people who have done this. People who've gone from nothing, build up steadily over 2, 3, 4 years, and they've achieved the things that you desire. What I would heavily argue is these people did not have that all in or nothing mentality, which is breeded via the stories of their lifestyle and the rags to riches stories that you hear. It's a consistent process of consistent decisions, consistent actions, consistent behaviors that compound over time and effort, which get them the result. Especially in the current climate with prop firms, it's a lot easier to achieve that escape. When I started trading, prop firms didn't exist. If you didn't have your own capital, you were at a phenomenal disadvantage, which no longer exists because of the ease of access to capital that you currently have as an opportunity. The reason why I want to expose the myths behind a lot of traders lifestyle stories and rags to rich stories is because they set that false expectation of what is possible. When you see a guy which you've never heard of before, and then in 3-4 months, all of a sudden, he's got the Lamborghini, bros. He's flying private jets. He's going on holiday all the time. He's posting pictures from a beach, setting just a complete false expectation of what the actual reality from nothing to full-time trader looks like. And this, whether you know it or not, programs the mind that you're bringing to the charts every day, and it is going to only disadvantage you to have those false expectations set. What I would encourage you to do is to look, I'm sure you have a mentor or you've had mentors in the past, look at the stories they tell you and see if it seems as though there is something missing, because a lot of the time there will be. So when you look to read between the lines, what you'll often see is they didn't have to risk it all. They didn't have to go for all or nothing in order to actually become successful. There was something going on behind the scenes. And what I'm talking about a lot of the times, one story, for example, a mentor which tells this story over and over again. And these guys who use this like to constantly repeat it. They constantly like to talk about their journey from nothing to something. And he constantly would talk about this story. He left his job, he risked it all, he had barely anything. He couldn't indulge in ordering food to his house. He was on a strict budget. And it was, if he didn't succeed in this next 2-month, 3-month period, then it was all over for him. What does that even mean, all over? There was no plan B, and this is what they like to stress a lot. What people didn't realize is actually behind the scenes, he was making 2 to 3x from being involved in a company that's selling their services, and he was a part of it. So he's making 2 to 3x what he was already on from the job that he left to sacrifice everything to go and make trading full time. So does that sound like an all or nothing, or does that sound like actually just a very logical decision? You've got a business, and I don't know why people aren't transparent with the businesses that they have and that they have income streams from other areas. Why wouldn't you? I think that you're stupid if you just trade full time. I did it when I left my previous wealth management firm. I was completely full time for 2 to 3 year period before I launched my first business, which is Trader's Mental Edge. And all I did was trade. And actually the pressure that builds and the mindset that encourages you to have, and the lack of productivity that you experience throughout the day when your only thing is to just focus on that 1 or 2 opportunities that might develop, you become very unproductive, which isn't going to help your trading. So this mentor, he had already built 3x what he was earning from his traditional job when he left. So it's just a logical step-by-step decision to build up to that point and then step away, become a full-time trader, whilst also doing that because it's aligned with your trading. It's as though if you teach trading, if you teach anything to do with technicals, if you have a community, it's kind of looked at as though all I do is trade. I'm a full-time trader. All I do is trade. And I don't think people should be shy to say, no, I provide this service because I have the qualifications. I'm profitable with this. I've got the experience. I've gone through a lot of things that you're going to experience on your journey. Let me share it with you for a fair exchange. You pay me for my services. I'll offer you something that's going to help you increase that learning curve that you're on. It's just a normal business situation. But that whole mask of covering up exactly what was going on behind the scenes in order to sell this rags to riches story is what creates that false expectation. And you'll see a lot of people who are in this sort of scenario and they're selling the dream. What they'll do is they'll also push their students to take on extra risk, to take on extra leverage, to really push when they have funded accounts, even if they're not ready. And the reasoning is because they get good testimonials the 1 or 2 times out of the 50 times that student then listens to it, and is the small part of that probability of that happening, and then they can use them to then leverage to get more students. We saw a lot of it during the rise of prop firms. We saw a lot of guys with a year, 2 years experience, seeing that their 1 or 2 good payouts from prop firms over a 12-month period makes them a profitable trader to a point where they can then leverage that and charge people for their services to learn from them. If you've been trading a year or 2, you really do not have the experience to be passing it to others. There's still a long way to go in your learning curve. Trust me, from someone who's been doing this 11 years, I never hesitate that the next 10 years is going to teach me even more. And I'll look back at this point now and think, wow, I was extremely naive and inexperienced still after 11 years of doing it. because you have to remain a constant student of the game, constantly growing, constantly learning, constantly evolving to keep up with market dynamics, market trends, everything that happens during the process whilst you're on the charts. So that experience level is extremely important. And what we saw when prop firms exploded, people wrongly thought that if they'd had 1 or 2 payouts over an extended period of time, it meant that they were qualified. It meant that they had a strong skill set. And you saw all of these communities popping up. What then happened is it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because these guys then get people into their services. So now they have a monthly income. And suddenly you see their lifestyle shift. And their lifestyle shifted when they launched that community. It didn't shift when they started taking some payouts from prop firms. It's shifted because they now have a monthly base. So they don't have to rely on their profits in order to continue to build up their wealth. And the reason why I want to talk about these things briefly is, 1, they don't get talked about. And 2, you need to be able to read between the lines. If you're hearing this rags to riches story, always look for the gaps in the story, because there'll very commonly be gaps. On top of services, you have other businesses like brokerages, like prop firms, as a lot of these things have become whitelisted and extremely easy to open personally for yourself in order to then market to an audience which you may have created the same thing. So it's not just the courses, it's not just the education, the communities, it's also the businesses that you can build alongside. So if you've got someone with a rags to riches story, but they made all of their money through their brokerage or providing some sort of software service, then you can very easily see there's gaps in that story there. So you don't believe the rags and the riches. And I feel like it's very important, as I keep saying, to set the expectation correct of what it looks like to go from someone who's trying to escape the 9 to 5, to escape normal life and become a profitable full-time trader. And yes, at the beginning, I stated it was important to recognize and express that there are people who've done this. There are people who have really started from nothing, especially with prop firms now, and they've grown into this full-time trader role. Does it take longer than 3 months, than 6 months? Of course it does. Even with the amazing opportunity of prop firms and what they present to you, it still takes time and effort in order to get there. Although they have the rags to riches story, it will be over an extended period of time versus someone who just appears out of nowhere and starts showing all of this lifestyle and using that as a way to leverage to get your attention. And why we acknowledge those traders and the fact that it does exist is, do you think that that's the highest probability route to becoming a full-time trader, to actually achieving the things that you have set out for yourself to achieve in trading? Do you think that's the highest probability? We all know the failure rate that exists in trading. They say 90%. You can talk yourself round in corners on this. It's probably less than 10% of people are successful. But when you look at the people who take this seriously, not just the people who are on brokerages, not just the people who are just doing it for a bit of fun, they've got £1,000 in their account, whatever, or people following signals, I would say it's more than 10%. People who take this seriously, it's more than 10% of traders who actually go on to have success in this industry, but still a very small minority. And out of, let's just call it 10%, out of that 10% of traders, how many of them do you truly think have the rags to riches story without the gaps appearing? Is it the highest probability chance that you're setting for yourself to quit your 9 to 5 as soon as you get funded, to go all in, to risk 5% on your personal capital before you've really figured out how to technically trade and the actual skill set and the mindset that you need in order to be profitable? Do you really think it's the all or nothing mentality, or do you think the people within that 10%, the 99% of those are traders who have built up over time and effort, consistently repeating behaviors, actions, process, learning, structure in order to get to that end result? And it should be a very simple answer for you to figure out. So the danger of the all or nothing mentality, and this is something that I experienced a lot in Edge, my psychology program, and communicating directly one-on-one with people. And there's 2 real stories that stuck out to me. There was one story, and it's probably a story that we've all heard, but I had someone who'd been through it before they joined Edge and was very interactive, because he had a lot of attachment to what had happened, because he constantly felt like he was ending up 10 steps back when only taking 4 steps forward. So this was the scenario: a trader who had been doing this, he'd been in it for 2-3 years at this point. he was starting to see results. Got his prop firm account. He had a normal 9 to 5 job, and it would impact on the time, the effort that he could actually be on the charts. So he'd miss out on trades, and it would affect his performance. And it's a hard balancing act to then not let that hurt your mindset moving forward when you know you have that external pressure which is limiting you from operating at your full capacity. So this trader, he got max funding with one of the providers, 400,000. And what he decided to do at that point, and this is before Edge, what he decided to do at that point was completely quit his 9 to 5 and go for that all or nothing mentality. He got his 400,000, and in his head, and you'll be able to resonate with this, in his head, logically, all he thought is, I just have to make 1% on this account and then wait until payout day, and that's more than my monthly salary currently is. The problem is with that thought process is, say that you did that on day 2, you now have to execute 20 plus days where you just look over opportunities that are there, not give in. You have to exercise that self-restraint, that discipline in order to just take that payout, which is logically a sound thing to do. However, the little devil on your shoulder is not going to let you do that. So what happened is this trader actually ended up blowing it in the first week that he had it. He'd quit his job. He couldn't go back. He'd gone all or nothing. He had no safety net. He didn't wait for the fee to be refunded from that challenge because he was just so eager to get on the charts and get trading because he'd never ever had access to this sort of capital before. So he got pulled towards it. Within a week, he's blown the thing. Can't go back to his job. So he'd taken 10 steps forward and now just got shot 20 steps back. And this is the issue when you have that all or nothing mentality, and why the highest probability, if you put yourself in a position like that, the external pressures that that's going to raise, you're going to self-sabotage and you're going to end up in a worse position than you were before you even took that funding challenge. So by burning up all of his resources, the job and the income that he had, the money that he had saved up in order to do the challenge, not waiting for the fee to be returned, he's destroyed the ability to sustain the trading journey. So straight away, within a week, he'd fucked everything up. And that's a story which I'm sure people may have experienced, and maybe not to that critical level, but you may have experienced that exact same thing. Because when you get funded and you get access to that capital, you're just thinking about the positives, what this can bring, what this can add. You're not thinking about what can go wrong and where that leaves you at the end of it. And the second story, that is one that I tell a lot, and I hope the chap doesn't mind, but I keep everything anonymous. I don't talk about names, anything like that. This guy, when he joined Edge, was having some severe mindset issues. So he had an over 50% pass rate on funding challenges. So over 50% of the time, he'd passed the challenges. In total, he'd spent between $60,000 and $70,000 on challenges. Bear in mind, over 50% of the time, he gets to that funded stage. He'd never had a single payout. And at the beginning, I think a lot of it is what we've just talked about in that prior story. It's that mindset getting overtaken with emotions, imagining all these things that you can do with the money that you're about to make, how your life's going to change. You start picturing it, how life's completely different, and you get carried away and you can't control yourself. Once you hit, and it's going to be a different threshold for different people's scenarios, once you hit probably 10 to 30k spent with no return, the attachment that you build to that lost capital, that lost money, is going to really, really grow to a point where every single time that you pass, you're going to self-sabotage, because all you can think about is that all or nothing mentality to getting that capital back, or it doesn't matter, or you'll just load up another one. So it becomes kind of like an addictive process to pass the funding, to get it into profit, to then blowing it up. And this is a story which he'd tell me repeatedly. And at this point, he was in Edge. I'd give him all of my insight, even to the point, and this isn't something that I typically recommend to people, these quick hacks and tips, which actually are just sort of short-term covers. They're just little bandages to stop bleeding issues. I usually encourage people to sit through when they're feeling resistance, when they're experiencing discomfort. I encourage people to push through that in order for it to become something that's a situation and a scenario that's now part of your comfort zone. Otherwise, you'll constantly have this issue that keeps anchoring you back and back and back to the same behavior patterns. He was too far gone for that. He'd messaged me, he'd passed another funded challenge, and he was sat in, I believe it was 20 to 25k profit. Bear in mind, he's negative 60 to 70 in the hole. I told him, get the fuck off of your computer, take a break, delete MT4 off your phone, MT5 off your phone, log yourself out, do what you need to do so that you can't even, if you think about it and you're about to give in, you can't even access the account to enact the behaviors which you've always displayed. Told me he'd done it, deleted it off my phone, can't do anything, not even going to look at charts for the next 2 weeks. All you had to do, and it would be less than that. I think it was probably about 7 business days which he had to wait for that payout to come through. Bear in mind, that's 40% of that capital that he's lost back in the pocket. And then you're building that momentum back in the right direction. I told him, reach out to me if you're thinking about doing anything stupid, just reach out to me and I'll be your accountability until this payout date has been taken, because it's obvious that when the feelings and the emotions are this strong and your thoughts are so overridden by the biological reactions that you're having to these scenarios, that you just need to you need to rely on someone else for a couple of times before you can then start to implement your self-discipline. Hadn't heard from him in 3 or 4 days, so just bumped in the messages and said, is everything all good? And he had taken a trade, ended up in a loss, told himself he was going to walk away, that was it. Then couldn't stop thinking about how he's now just lost an extra 4k of profit, or whatever it would have been, 4k of profit from the 25 that he was about to pull out, and ended up blowing it all within the same day. An account that was sat in 25k profit blew it all in the same day. And this is the real dangers of that all in or nothing mentality. Some of it is going to be through your biological wiring, such as in that instance, and then he'll just get into this negative behavior loop of self-sabotaging because it becomes an addictive thing. The cells within your body get used to these different emotions and these different chemicals that release through you relevant to certain scenarios, and they want to feel it again. So if you've got a friend who always likes to complain about the news, every time that you see him he's complaining about the news, it's because your cells get addicted to that feeling when you're getting angry about reading the news, even though it probably 95% of it doesn't affect your life. So how we're biologically wired will have a huge impact. Also, the social programming from the myths of the mentors and this rags to riches story, it shows you and demonstrates to you how it can impact traders' journeys to actually becoming full-time, because they end up blowing everything up because they think every single time that they take a trade, or every single time that they pass a funding challenge and get that actual funded capital, they embrace that all in or nothing mentality, and this is the only moment, this is the only opportunity that they're going to be able to get in order to achieve their goals and their desires. And I'm sure that you're hearing different cognitive distortions that are happening there. There's catastrophizing, there's all in or nothing mentality, and there's also a lot of operating from scarcity as well, which drives a lot of these behaviors. So let's actually talk about the true meaning of going all in on trading. If it doesn't mean exposing yourself to large amounts of risk. As traders, we are professional risk managers. I'm sure you've heard of that before, and a lot of people have trouble understanding. They'll say it out loud, but they have trouble understanding the term of our job as traders is to preserve capital, not to make it. And the reasoning why that is the truth, that we are more focused on preserving capital than we are making money. The reason for that is because if we're constantly exposing ourselves to risk, if we're constantly taking extra risk, taking more trades than we should, which is a risk parameter that a lot of people don't factor in when they're thinking about their risk management plan, how many trades they actually take, because you're at risk every single time you take a trade. So if you're taking 40 trades a month, you're exposing your account to 40% drawdown if you're taking 1% risk on each trade, which a lot of people don't factor in to how many trades they try and limit themselves to, or what quality of setup they're taking. So the reason why we need to preserve that capital is we know there's an abundance of opportunities, good opportunities that we should be executing on that meet our plan. We know there's an abundance of them coming. We don't have that limited mindset of this is all or nothing. This trade is the only trade that's going to develop. And then you look back with objectivity after the fact and you think, that doesn't even meet my plan. We preserve capital because we know in the times when our opportunities arise, we need it there in order to take the risk, to potentially get the reward, and over a large sample size, that's where our profit comes from. A lot of people have trouble understanding exactly what it means to preserve the capital. But if we're taking risk on average trades, on bad trades, we're taking 5 trades a day, you're not going to be in the game for long enough to actually be able to benefit from the good trades, which are the only ones that you should be taking in the first place. So going all in trading, it's not about taking more risk. It's not about leveraging more funding. It's not about going for the biggest return you can possibly get on your personal accounts, on your funded accounts. It's not about flipping accounts. Fuck that shit. It's not about any of that. It's not about risking everything that you have, giving yourself no plan B in your longer term journey to becoming a full-time trader. If you have a job, you just need to change how you view it in your mind. A lot of people see it as a negative thing, but it's a part of the process that allows you to achieve the thing at the end of the day. If it's what pays for your life or your funding challenges so that you can continue to build on this skill set, so you can continue to move towards and build forward momentum on your journey, then you should see it as a positive thing. You should be grateful that you have that job, that opportunity to be able to continue to build your skill set of trading. You shouldn't see it as something that's an obstacle, something that's stopping you, something that's hindering you, something that you should view negatively, and all you want to do is get it out the way. You set that ambition. I'm not going to work this in 2 years' time, but I understand and I appreciate and I'm grateful that it's giving me the opportunity to keep working on my trading ability and skill. So what we need to work on when we're talking about all or nothing, this obviously comes down to being all or nothing, to committing to your actions and behaviors in that process of becoming profitable. So obviously we have the learning, you've got to learn the technicals. So there's obvious routes which you can implement to ensure that you're being as efficient as you can be with your time. And obviously a lot of that is from structured learning. So having structured learning, and I would always encourage you to focus on one style, to focus on one mentor. And that's why I personally believe you're going to have a much quicker journey if you do go the route of paying to invest in education. Just make sure you pick the right education, make sure you pick the right mentor. It's going to speed up that curve. If you're relying on YouTube, and this is kind of one of the criticisms that mentors get, that educators get, a lot of this information is out there for free. However, there's a lot of shit information that doesn't work that is out there for free. So the time it takes you to work through who can I trust, who can't I trust? Is this person thinking from the same perspective? Do these 2 or 3 traders even trade the same way? Or am I just confusing myself by looking at different styles of how to approach and perceive the markets that are in front of me when I'm sat at the charts? If you have a one tunnel vision on the right mentor, on the right education, you're structured with your process and learning, and you're interactive. This is the most key thing, in my opinion, to improving the structure of your learning, is you're interactive with the chart on a day-to-day basis, and you're looking at them live and you're building that experience. One thing I've learned through educating, through being in communities, through having a community, is you can tell people the same thing over and over again, but there's always a degree of experience that has to happen, that they have to make mistakes, that they have to fail, that they have to take bad trades. A lot of people learn quicker, a lot of people learn really, really slow, but that experience has to be built, because that's what's building your confidence in your ability. That's what's building your confidence in your plan. That's what's building your confidence in being able to execute efficiently, and even the belief that you can do this and it is a possible thing. If you're only watching videos or trade breakdowns and you're not applying the logic, the concepts live to the market and taking the lessons away from that, you're going to slow your growth curve a lot. And a lot of people feel like they're doing this, and this is why my sort of advice to people who are in that learning stage, it's obviously a little bit style dependent, but the style that I trade, I highly encourage traders to focus on one pair. And straight away you get some kickback and everyone's going, well, if I'm looking at 5 pairs or 3 pairs, I'm going to learn quicker because I'm seeing more price action. I'm seeing more of this, I'm seeing more of that. The problem is when you focus on several pairs versus one, what happens? You go into execution only mode. You're scrolling through the 3 charts, you're looking at the different price action that's going on, and you're just looking for opportunities. So you're in this constant mindset of you're wanting to execute. If you're focused in on one pair, you're not just looking for opportunities. You're not just saying, oh, when can I take a trade? Is this a trade that I need to be in? You're looking at the charts and you're learning. You're learning about what moves price. You're learning about why price moves from one place to another place. You're learning about the different concepts, the timing. You're understanding the characteristics of how different asset classes work. And by watching that one pair instead of 4 pairs, you're absorbing a lot more lessons in a day than someone who's just scrolling between charts, not paying attention to the actual movements that the price action is showing you and the lessons that can be taken from that, because they're just in that mode of, right, which one should I take a trade on? Is there an opportunity here? Is there an opportunity here? So their learning is a lot slower. There's other things when we're talking about learning the technicals, but I'm not going to talk about them in this video. We can also work on developing the right mindset. So actually working on framing the mindset that's capable of accepting the uncertainty which is ever present in trading. Focusing on building that skill set, focusing on building that mindset of practicing and applying patience, of practicing and applying discipline, not looking for that constant instant reward, that instant gratification, that all or nothing mentality, but you're building that right mindset. This is something we talked about in videos past. Your mind and building those skill sets, those characteristics like patience and discipline, it's something that has to be practiced over and over again and is built up over reps. You don't just start off as someone who has amazing discipline or amazing patience or complete confidence in your ability. They're all different characteristics that have to be built up over time and effort. And the last thing I want to touch on what you can go all in on, and this is to help your learning, and this is to build self-awareness, but also to build a technical understanding, is ensuring that you're all in or nothing on showing up and fulfilling and having some sort of structured routine to your trading. Don't just jump on the charts, look at them for half an hour, try and take an opportunity, get pissed off because it went without you or you took a loss, and then just walk away and just think nothing about it. Before you go on the charts, you should have a process. I'm big into process and structure, and this is a process and structure that I follow in order to allow me to stay conscious and logical throughout the day, but also have a introspective and reflective period at the end of each day, at the end of each week, where I can measure objectively how I performed and what I did bad, what I did good, what patterns do I have in my behaviors that I need to work on, what the triggers are starting to set me off to have irrational decision making. So I know exactly how do I keep growing and growing and growing. And without this, you're constantly going to be feeling like you are sort of treading on water, not really improving. Your technical understanding is getting a little bit better, but you keep making the same fuck ups over and over and over again. You have a good week, then you have a bad week. You have a good day, then you give all the profit back. And you go through these repeatable cycles because of the negative behavior loops that you are currently stuck in. So have a process in the morning before you jump on the charts. Create what you expect to happen in the day. Create a checklist. Have I checked my news? Is my copier set up? If you trade multiple accounts, am I logged in and ready to go if an opportunity starts to develop? Am I prepared for the trading day? Then when you walk away from the charts, I always have something so that when I come back to the charts, I can quickly look. What was I looking at for this morning? What did I expect price action to do? Okay, is the price action we've seen relevant to what I was expecting to happen? Is there an opportunity that I've missed? Is there an opportunity that's looking to develop? What do I need to see X, Y, Z? And it's constantly engaging back to, okay, what was I expecting this morning? Because if you perform that exercise, you'll realize if you have a good technical understanding, a lot of the times, whatever you're framing in the morning, you're going to be accurate with. But what most people end up doing is they take 2 or 3 trades that are completely against what they were expecting in the morning because they completely forgot what their bias was, what they were looking for, what they were waiting for, and they've just taken trades that are outside of their plan because, I don't know, maybe they got stuck. They were on the 1 minute and they got a little bit carried away and zoomed in. And then a process at the end of the day to reflect on exactly what you expected to happen, what has happened. Have I missed anything? What lessons can I take away from how price developed today? Did I miss out on X, Y, Z? Is this something that I constantly keep doing? And how do I address that to improve going forwards? You can take a lot of lessons from just observing a day of price action on one single pair, repeatedly over and over and over again. So you need some sort of process and structure to your trading routine. When we talk about trading routine, we're not talking about, oh, I wake up in the morning, I ice bath, I spray Evian water in my eyeballs, drink 17 coffees, and do 55 press-ups every minute on the minute. Training routine is how you work throughout the day. And that should be a process and a structure that encourages growth and learning in your own trading, so that every single day you're turning up, you're getting better. So when we revisit those stories of that all or nothing mentality, what do you think you have the highest probability in becoming a full-time trader? Someone who's consistently working on their behaviors, their actions, they're all in on the commitment to doing the right things repeatedly over and over again and not worried about the short-term outcome, or that all or nothing trader that every single trade they take, this is it. This is all or nothing. What do you think gives you a higher probability of achieving the results that you desire? All in trading, it isn't about risking it all. It isn't about not having a plan B or stepping stones in order to get there. It's about committing fully to the process of becoming the trader who is capable of being a profitable trader. And that's the dedication that you need to have. And you need to hold this expectation of this does take time. This does take effort. This involves work on my mindset. It involves turning up every single day. It involves constantly seeking to improve my understanding of the technicals, to constantly building the confidence in my strategy and working on the characteristics it's going to take me to be that profitable trader. So the only thing you should be going all in on is your effort.
All work, no pleasure. I ain't here to make friends, big stepper. Hey, bad guy, Heath Ledger. Ready for wherever, I'll be front and center. Don't fly too close to the sun, your body chopped up by propellers.